King Kong in the trunk.
I'm back. Road Rants. This time starting my rankings of the Star Wars properties. I'm going to do this the same way I do the horror podcast. It's going to be a video podcast. It's going to be completely informal. I'm not going to worry about the camera. I'm just going to get on here and talk. It'll be a review combined with an actual rank. Now, what I'm doing is I'm ranking all Star Wars properties that are currently considered canon, technically. If you don't want to consider some of these canon in your canon, completely understandable. Completely understandable. There are 15 properties in this list. Just to let you know, the Clone Wars movie, Star Wars Rebels, and The Mandalorian all qualified for the list. Okay, so animated, live action, no books. No books, okay? And as you might consider, number 15 and in last place is a movie directed by one Rian Johnson. Now, it would be irresponsible of me not to recognize that this singular movie launched a fan movement unlike anything, in my opinion, that pop culture has seen in 20 years at least. And considering the age of social media, it's been unbelievable. This movie is responsible for launching my channel and so many other channels out there. People got inspired by how much Disney disrespected Star Wars that they literally got up off their asses, bought cameras, bought mics, and said, we're going to utter and complete pop culture war with Lucasfilm. So many legends have come out of this. Jeremy at Geeks and Gamers, SC Reviews, John Talks, Doomcock, EVS, World Class, Nerdrotic has flown up. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge how much Jeremy John's views of the sequel trilogy has changed over time. And one of the movies on my list, my view of it has greatly changed. And it's because of this movie, and it's because of The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm pissed at Disney for that. I am. Number 15, The Last Jedi. Episode 8. This is probably my least favorite movie of all time. Oddly enough, my favorite movie of all time is in this list. But on a side note, it's an awful Star Wars film, but it's a horrible movie. It's a horrible movie, too. Objectively speaking, it has floored me. The reaction from the critics. This is one of the worst movies I have ever seen. It's all over the place. He did such a poor job with scripting, screenplay, tone. It almost feels like a generic Star Wars movie. Like, it's a generic space movie with weird elements of like the Fifth Element thrown in and just random movies that you wouldn't think about. Oddly enough, most of Ryan's work has been pretty good. I didn't love Knives Out. I saw it, but it wasn't terrible. I liked Looper. He made arguably two of the greatest episodes of Breaking Bad ever filmed. But him and Kathleen Kennedy try to rewrite movie history with this shit. And destroyed the franchise. As we know, the movie starts out with an awful space battle where we see a Your Mama joke, a Verizon Can You Hear Me commercial. We see bombs literal physical bombs, not shrouded in laser, dropped into space, into gravity, and instead of floating, they actually drop. No sense whatsoever. We literally see that, and we're supposed to take that seriously. We get introduced to two Tico sisters. The good Tico sister, the one that I think I might have actually liked, gets killed during that same horrible bomber sequence in which the bombers have no shields. Any piece of debris seems to knock them out of the air and explode them. It's awful. It's like the Resistance regressed 30 years in space battle. By the way, the sequel trilogy had almost no continual galaxy building. There was no building of the galaxy. And George Lucas was huge on that. You know, he wanted the galaxy to be ever expanded. And it just wasn't expanded. But that's the sequel trilogy as a whole. JJ absolutely takes blame there. So does Kathleen Kennedy. We get back to the ship. Leia has to slap Poe Dameron because he disobeyed her, and it was one of many moments in which women, strong female characters, had to flex nuts on a male in this movie because, you know, identity politics, virtue signaling. Finn gets up from his slumber. He's been in a coma or something. And his first thing is he starts screaming Rey, because that's all that Finn does in these three movies is scream Rey. This movie did so much damage to the franchise because it took characters that were introduced in a movie I really liked. I loved. If I'm honest, I loved The Force Awakens. And which is gonna, when you get my rank of it, you're gonna be like, wow, what happened? Well, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker happened. You know, if you don't follow through, if you can't give me a quality finish, I have to go back and look at the beginning and go, well, you should have done some stuff here if you wasn't going to do it there. Right? So anyway, we've all seen the movie at this point. I hate to go through the movie. But Rey goes off. As we know, she finds Luke, where we ended with The Force Awakens. I do want to acknowledge, too, I absolutely hated the fact that Rian Johnson started this movie directly after the ending of The Force Awakens, because it completely negates the victory over Starkiller Base. I mean, you know, yeah, we blew it up, but we flew right out into a space battle. There's no recognition of that. There's no acknowledgement in the movie of Luke mourning Han. It was a cut scene. Ryan had the wherewithal to film it. By the way, it was the best scene. That's how out of touch he is with Star Wars. He filmed what, in my opinion, I watched the scene and I loved it. Luke mourning Han, but he didn't have the wherewithal to put it in the movie. Asshole. I mean, I'm sorry. Asshole. Okay? And I knew something was wrong. The tone of the space battle, the tone of the movie felt off already before we even got to Act 2. But then, of course, Luke takes the lightsaber and he tosses it over his shoulder. I literally turned to my wife at the time and I was like, what just happened? I was like, did he just throw that over his shoulder for real? The lightsaber that Ben Kenobi handed to him as a teenager his father's lightsaber he just threw over his shoulder. And it didn't make any sense to me. It still doesn't. It's odd because as a Star Wars fan, that feels so disrespectful to me. To Star Wars, to the product, to Luke Skywalker. And it makes me realize, that sort of thing is exactly why Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson don't need to be anywhere around Star Wars. Because it's clear to me, they don't get it. Putting that scene in a movie, they don't get it. They don't get it. So, then we have Rey. Luke's not wanting to screw with her. He's not wanting to train her. The middle movie of a trilogy is so important. It's the pivot point. It's the movie where you have your true meat and potatoes of your character developments. Poe gets no character development and no progression. Finn gets none. Rey gets no training, and she gets no failure. Not only that, but she has a confrontation with Luke Skywalker, and she puts Luke on his ass in a confrontation with no training. There's so much cringe-worthiness in this movie. It's unbelievable. They make Luke into this guy that just gives up. He's the polar opposite of the Luke we know. He gives up. He becomes grumpy from the Seven Dwarves. He just wants to go there to die. Fuck Leia, and the hell with Chewie. It's so out of touch and out of character. And it's where you see Disney's agenda against Luke. You do. It's a character assassination of a hero. It's a character assassination. It's something that, as a Star Wars fan, I've said I will never believe Rian Johnson is a Star Wars fan, because I don't believe a Star Wars fan can sit down and write that movie in the manner in which it was wrote. The way those characters are handled, the way moments in that movie is handled. I cannot imagine having Luke Skywalker in your hand as a character to write, and you write it in that manner. If you feel you're that out of touch with Star Wars, leave the movie. Don't make it. It's almost like the movie was written by a guy that knew some guys that he wanted to be friends with, and they had Star Wars toys, and they never let him play with them, so he's still mad at them 30 years later and gets handed a Star Wars property, and he's literally like, watch what I do to your beloved Star Wars, or let's see how you like it when I handled this with, it's like somebody that's got a vendetta, which Lord knows you don't need to be anywhere around the property if you got a vendetta on it, right? You need to love it and cherish it. And you don't need to, don't try to outthink the room. Ryan tried to outthink the room, and it backfired. I said I would have read his script and called him in a room, and I'd have let him go, because I'd have said, "Look, you don't understand Star Wars, or you don't understand the tone of Star Wars, and you certainly don't understand the characters. So we're going to have to let you go." I know that would have been another director. The one director Kathleen Kennedy should have got rid of, she didn't. Another reason why she doesn't need to be around Star Wars either. Again, no character progression. Captain Phasma's in the movie for 3 or 4 minutes maybe and gets killed off by Finn. Rose Tico is completely unlikable. They introduce Admiral Holdo into the movie, played by Laura Dern. I said this movie's got the great distinction of having two fantastic actors in it, Laura Dern and Benicio del Toro, and it succeeds in making both of them terrible. How does that happen? You know, they're great actors, and they're rendered awful. Their characters are terrible. DJ is terrible. Admiral Holdo, she's put in there just to berate and cut Poe's nuts off, for lack of a better term. They break Star Wars sort of. They pulled that hyperspace move where she light speeds into all the ships, and you're like, well, that's never happened. Rian Johnson puts light speed tracking into the movie, and I don't care if it was talked about in Rogue One. I hate it. In all the previous Star Wars films, the thought was, if we can just get to the ship, and as long as the hyperdrive is working, we have a chance to escape. That was just one of the principles of Star Wars. It was like, just if you can just get to the ship and get to hyperspace, you're good. You can make it. The heroes will make it. And they broke that, and it was terrible. I hated that. They found us. Everybody looked around like, they tracked us through light speed? Well, how the hell did y'all not know this technology existed all of a sudden? And now you're finding out? I hated that. I hated it. And then when she ran into all the other ships, it was like, so they could have put a droid in an X-Wing and ran and sent it in at light speed directly into the Death Star. It just hurt so many previous moments in Star Wars. That sort of thing should have never been allowed. I think Rian Johnson just thought, oh, this will be cool. Well, no, it wasn't, because people do care about what came prior in Star Wars. They just don't want, oh, there's some familiar ships and they're flying around real fast and then blah. And then I can say, well, real fast? We got an hour and a half of the slowest chase scene ever, with those Star Destroyers staying just so far behind because they're lighter, they can fly faster than us, but they're going to run out of fuel. Now all of a sudden fuel is a massive issue in Disney Star Wars. It comes up in Solo. Why have we never heard about fuel being an issue in Star Wars before? But in Disney, fuel is a thing, baby. I mean, you better have some fuel. Because if you don't, or you're running low, Disney Star Wars will let you know it. There's so much to hate about this movie. They kill off the villain, Snoke. By the way, I liked Snoke. Coming out of The Force Awakens, I said, this son of a bitch has got a lot of potential. He's powerful. Don't know where he came from. Don't know where in the hell he was hiding all these years. But he's an evil sumbitch, and he's got some dark side to him. He looked really powerful. And I'm supposed to believe that Kylo Ren mind-tricked him after he's just throwing Rey around like nothing's going on and she can't trick him. But Kylo got him, and Rian Johnson kills the villain of the trilogy midway through the second movie. Look at all the problems that one decision caused. You lost your villain. You have to bring back Palpatine. When you bring back Palpatine, you get rid of the Chosen One vibe created by one Anakin Skywalker. Now Rey's the Chosen One. Now you've broke canon from Return of the Jedi, and you've retconned it. It was, look at the fallout from just killing Snoke. You know, just killing Snoke. It's terrible. It's terrible. There's no progression in Rey. Look, she should have failed badly in this movie. She didn't fail. At the end, she raised up all the boulders like she's a trained Jedi. No training, no failure in the middle film, which means the hero's journey is destined to fail in this trilogy because you didn't address training and failure in the middle movie. Look at how important The Empire Strikes Back is to Luke Skywalker's character development and progression. Training, failure. He didn't listen to Yoda. Vader hands him his ass on Bespin. I mean, he gets the monkey shit kicked out of him. Not Rey. Not Mary Sue Ray. And right there, Disney lost their hero of the trilogy. Because, look, when we get to the end of the movie and nothing bad has happened to her, and she didn't get any training, it leaves you scratching your head. You had an opportunity where we all suspected Finn was going to be Force sensitive. That wasn't followed up on. In fact, you put him in a side mission and sent him off to one of the most horrible planets ever created in Canto Bight, where they cover animal cruelty, gambling is bad, capitalism is bad, more virtue signaling. I mean, this thing became a Kathleen Kennedy, Ryan Johnson political shit show. And then you had Finn with a moment on Crate where he was about to do something very heroic. I turned to my wife and I said, oh my God, Finn's about to sacrifice himself, and this is going to be great for his character. He's going to go down in Star Wars history because Finn is about to take out that thing by himself. It was the only moment in the whole movie where I was like, oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. And then you knocked him out of the way by Rose Tico. And I just was shaking my head. Even in the theater, first showing, I was shaking my head and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then that cringeful line, we don't hate and whatever. We love what we hate. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. I don't know the line. I've seen the movie 2.5 times. 2.5 times. I couldn't make it through the half time. I gave up on it. Ryan Johnson, Star Wars. This was the backbone. This was the WWE backbreaker to Star Wars. It was. This was how to wreck a franchise in one movie. I mean, who thought it was possible to completely fuck Star Wars up in one film? Boy, they did it. They did it. Unbelievable. And then on top of it, Luke's coming back on Crate and he's walking in. And then what's going to be this historic moment is he's facing down the First Order. And then he raises that lightsaber. And it's Anakin's. And I'm like, why do you have that lightsaber and not the green one? And then I went, oh, he's not really there. I figured that out about 6 seconds into that scene. And then I just started shaking my head. I was like, this is some hologram or projection or something they've done in this movie. And then I was mad about that. Because I was like, you didn't even bring Luke back in physical form in the movie. For an ending battle. This movie makes me so mad. Even talking about it right now makes me mad. But I'm trying to now officially give up most of my cursing on the channel. We'll see how that goes. I am a redhead. And at the end, we get to the very end, and Luke's staring at those twin sons, and I turned to my wife at the time, and I said, they're not about to kill him, right? He's not about to die. Why would he die? And then he disappears, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And then we find out after the fact that Luke OD'd on the Force. When has that ever been a thing? And why would you kill off Luke Skywalker in the middle film of your new trilogy? The most profitable and most important character in Star Wars, you killed him off. You could argue along with Anakin, maybe. But you killed him off. An entire fan base just lit you on fire, Disney. Because you ruined their hero. You ruined their hero. And I was a Han guy, but on behalf of those Luke fans, I was just as mad. I was just as mad. I didn't understand. I was like, what was the point of doing that? Luke should have been alive at the end of The Rise of Palpatine. He should have been alive. He should not, if he was going to die, and to me, you didn't even have to kill him, but if he was going to die, it should have been in a heroic moment at the very end of the last film. In case you're wondering, on a 0 to 10 scale, I give this movie a 0.5. A 0.5 out of 10. The movie was, in fact, in focus. It was shot in focus. There were things like cinematic themes in the score that, to me, weren't even placed in the right place. And you had that Praetorian Guard scene, fight scene that was a choreographed mess. There's almost nothing good about this movie. I kind of like the Porgs. I do. The Porgs are cute. The Porgs pissed everybody else off, and I came away with the Porgs are about the only thing I liked about the movie. And Chewie, and seeing Chewie flying the Falcon on Crate was my favorite scene in the whole movie. But hell, even Rey was in that scene blasting TIE fighters, and she shot one shot and blew 3 TIE fighters out of the air. Mary Sue Much. I don't know how any Star Wars fan watches this movie and likes it. I really don't. It's weird to me that I know that there is even... I sometimes believe that, like... I know Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score says 44% like it or love it or whatever their score is. But I sometimes believe it is anti-fandom menace fans. And I wonder if they really and truly hate this film. But they will never admit it. They will never admit it. I don't know how you like this movie if you're a Star Wars fan. I think it's a horrible movie. It's my least favorite movie of all time. 0.5 out of 10. Number 15 on my rank of Star Wars properties that are currently in canon, that are live action or animated. TV or movie. Hit subscribe. Peace. I'm out. Till next time. I got King Kong in the